Are you struggling to get wins against elite clubs on Football Manager? You've tried every meta tactic and every meta instruction out there, and it still seems like nothing is working. You dominate most of the smaller and mid-table teams, but then when it comes to the big games, you kind of bottle it. You know, the cup final, the UCL final, or those games against your top bitter rivals in the game, you somehow struggle and then you can't get a win. Well, the answer might be one of the most underrated Football Manager tactics of all time. Now, in different saves that I've played on Football Manager, teams like FC Barcelona, Real Madrid, Tottenham Hotspur, there are those games where you go ahead and beat them, but more often than not, you're going to leave yourself exposed at the back, and then you go ahead and concede a lot of goals, and you just find it very difficult to come back from there. But I found a way to use the Catenaccio to actually steal narrow wins from these elite clubs, especially when we're in run of bad form facing them. Now, I get asked this question a lot: when are you going to make a Catenaccio tactic? The truth is, it's been difficult. That's because the Catenaccio tactic has a lot of weaknesses. Now, I know the Catenaccio is a negative system, sort of, that has been designed to help you force the opposition out wide and try to frustrate them and force them to make low quality chances. But on Football Manager, it is so negative that it's very difficult to actually play an entire season with Catenaccio and win anything. It's almost impossible. Another thing I don't like about the Catenaccio is the underutilized player attributes. Now, let me explain. Imagine you're one of the mid-table teams or sub-top teams in Football Manager. Maybe you're managing Napoli or Bayer Leverkusen. You're going to have some very good players in your team, even though your entire squad is not stacked with wonderkids and super players. Now, if you play a Catenaccio system with that team, you're going to be suppressing some of your players' player attributes. You'll not be able to use them to their full potential the way you would normally do if we were playing a normal tactic that isn't so defensive. Now, even though the Catenaccio is defensive, there are some principles that we can pick up from there to help us steal massive points when we're playing against the big teams, the elite clubs in Football Manager. One of those principles is their counter-attacking system. Now, in the original Catenaccio system, Helenio Herrera actually designed the tactic to be counter-attacking. He believed that it was possible to have a plan B in defense. Even though the team was sitting deep to try and defend, when the opposition tried to break them down with through balls, he always had a covering central defender that was going to deal with those through balls. He called this player the Catenaccio. Now, out of possession, the team is going to sit in a low block and invite the pressure, but when they go ahead to win possession of the ball, they hit the opposition with a lightning fast counter-attack. You'll be surprised to know that the most attacking player in Helen Herrera's Inter Milan was actually his left back. We're not going to go into detail about the Catenaccio's history, but to learn more about Catenaccio as a Football Manager preset, I will leave a link in the description so you can check out that video next. So how can you use the Catenaccio to steal massive wins from elite clubs? Well, start by choosing a formation that allows you to stay solid defensively. You can use a 3-5-2 or you can use a 3-4-2-1 system. I actually like a 3-4-2-1 system, by the way. But in your back three system, you want to have a central defender, your central defender, to play on cover duty. He will act as the Catenaccio. Now, the default Football Manager Catenaccio preset has a tiny flaw. The system adopts a libero on support duty. However, in Football Manager 2024, the libero is not a covering central defender, so he's not going to drop deep the way a normal Catenaccio is expected to drop. He's more of a centre-back playmaker than an actual Catenaccio. So for this role, I recommend using the ball-playing defender on cover duty, as he's going to have the ability to create more chances and also drop in and cover those through balls when he actually is out of possession. That is a better representative of the Catenaccio. Now, I did go on to create two variants of the Catenaccio. The first one that I worked with was using the default preset Football Manager Catenaccio instructions, and then we're going to look at the results that we have with that, and I'm going to show you the tweaks that I went on to make to the Catenaccio system that could help you get better results in the game and not be too defensive. This is the default Catenaccio preset on Football Manager 2024. I'm currently using Inter Milan, and what we see here is the two wide centre backs on defend duty and one libero on support duty. We've spoken briefly about why the libero is not really supposed to be the guy that you use for the Catenaccio system, but looking at all the other roles, we have most of the players playing on their preferred duties. But the results that I got using this particular tactic is somewhat underwhelming. Inter Milan are a good team on Football Manager. They're a good team in real football as well, but the results that we had here were not they were not the very best. If you look at the competition stats, they're sitting in 4th place. They've lost 2 games in the league. That's quite good, I guess. But in the Champions League, they've lost 3 times, drawn one only once, and they're bottom of their group in the particular group that they're playing in. In the Italian Cup, they're still there. The competition has barely even started. But looking at the data hub, you can see that what we're noticing here, if you look at the way the team goes on to defend, they're actually conceding 1.21 goals per game, which is not enough for me. They're keeping a lot of clean sheets, but they're still conceding just over a goal per game, which is not very good. And they're expected to concede even more, which is 1.36. And yeah, with the Catenaccio, it doesn't really help them defensively, not the way it's set up anyway. So if you go back to the tactics screen, then you can see that it's currently set to play with the defensive mentality. And the issue that I have with the defensive mentality, good it can be from mid-table teams, is the fact that it actually suppresses most of your players and their abilities that they have. Now, you can use this in one-off games, which is probably why we're here right now. But for you to use it for an entire season, it's nearly impossible for you to go ahead and win the league or dominate the league playing with the defensive mentality like this. You can look at all the team instructions. It's currently set to play with a more direct passing system and a slightly lower tempo. So it's kind of, I think for the lower tempo is for your team to be a bit more calculative with their passing, but nevertheless, it doesn't allow you to get the ball to the front as quickly as you need to in order to get a goal or to hurt the opposition. Now, looking at the way the team is set up in transition, they're going to regroup and counter and slow the pace down. I think I actually agreed most of the instructions for in transition, but we're going to look at what I did when I go into ahead to show you the different preset that I went on to create, that is the Catenaccio system. But if we look at the way the team is set up out of possession, then low block, low defensive line, attract or draw the opposition onto yourself, and then when you go ahead and win possession back, you can hit them on the counter attack, knowing that they have a lot of players committed to the attack to try and break your team down. The trigger press is also set to less often, which allows your defenders to stay in their shape, but that also means that you're sacrificing a lot of the chances that you would use to get the ball back. And the team like Inter Milan have a lot of aggressive players like Thuram, Lautaro Martinez. They have, what's this other guy's name, Nicolo Barella, Hakan Calado. Most of these players are quite aggressive. They could press your position and try to get the ball back, but if you're playing with a low block, low defensive line and less often trigger press, it's not enough for you to actually get the ball back and try to turn and cause the turnover for you to go ahead and counter the opposition and get a goal as quickly as possible. Now, I did go on to make tweaks to the Catenaccio system. I'm going to show that to you. Now, with my version of the Catenaccio that I went on to create for Inter Milan, I also stopped this particular save on the 3rd of December, just like I did the last one, and we're currently sitting in second place, 10 points more than we had in the previous default Catenaccio system. In the Champions League, we're still struggling, but this time we're in 3rd place. We've won 2 games, and all the other Italian cups, we're not really going to look at that. If you look at us in 2nd place, we've lost only twice instead of 4 times that we lost at the previous Catenaccio at this point. And if you look at the way the team actually has their data all set up, looking at the team's defending, we're actually conceding 0.93, so less than 1 goal per game this time. We have 5 clean sheets instead of 4, so there's been a slight improvement with the way you can actually tweak the Catenaccio to help you get better results in the game. And if you look at the expected goals conceded, it's 1.05, so just shy of 1 goal per game. And it means that despite the fact that we're facing a lot of good chances, we're not conceding that many goals, which is quite good. And goal scoring wise, I don't really like how many goals we're getting to score. We're expected to score 1.18, which is terrible, to be honest. But we scored 1.64 goals per game, which is, well, slightly above the expected goals that we're supposed to get. And I'm going to show you a lot more ways that you can actually tweak the Catenaccio to actually help you get better results. One thing that we need to note here is that the Catenaccio is, while I'm actually showing you this video, it's that it's for a one-off game. It's not for an entire season, so you can't really use the Catenaccio to play an entire season. I don't recommend it. And in the game against Juventus, despite the fact that we actually went on to win only 1-0, we had more of the ball because we were not that deep defensively. And Juventus actually had 0.40 xg, which is less than a goal. They were not actually expected to score that many goals. So in the game, we actually held on to beat them 1-0. And it was the kind of game that you expect that Juventus are going to dominate, and they're going to actually try and come at you and force you to make mistakes and force you to actually concede goals. But we didn't really concede any goals. We didn't give them anything in the game at all. That is because we were solid defensively and also were able to hit them on the counter attack. So this is the tweak that I went on to make to the Catenaccio system. I sort of simplified it to what I feel would work best for a team like Inter Milan, and you can go ahead and apply these principles as well. And for the goalkeeper, instead of just using a defensive goalkeeper that the normal Catenaccio would use, I went on to use a super keeper on support DT to actually encourage the goalkeeper to take a bit more risk and try to start counter attacks. In centre backs, I kind of kept the wide centre backs this time for wide centre back on defend duty on both sides, but in the middle of the pitch we have a ball playing defender on cover duty. That's because this player is one player that can actually drop deep and try to act as the Catenaccio. The libero on support duty doesn't really do that. We've kind of covered that before. In midfield, I went for the ball-winning midfielder here and the deep line playmaker on support duty. That's because as much as I like the Regista is suited to a possession-based style of play, and the Catenaccio system is not a possession-based style of play. It's more of a counter-attacking system. Now, on both flanks, I kept wing-back on attack duty for DiMarco. That's because DiMarco is a wing-back on attack, so nothing too deep as to why I went on to select that role, except that it's suited for DiMarco. And Denzel Dumfries can play as a wing-back on support duty. duty also his preferred duty. And if I had Matteo Darmian in here and I wanted to be a bit more defensive, I could ask that the wing back is going to be a wing back on defend duty rather than play on support. So it's kind of just picking the right role for the particular player and allow the team instruction to decide what the players are going to do on the pitch. Now if you have Zielinski here in attacking midfield, I think he has a player trait that allows him to shoot more often. If you go ahead to tries killer balls a lot more often. So I just opted for the central attacking midfielder on support duty to give him a bit more freedom, but then I asked him to be a player that takes a lot of risk to try and allow him to play like an advanced playmaker, even though he's playing as an AM on support. For the strikers, I had Lautaro Martinez play on his preferred pressing forward duty, and then of course Thuram to be a centre forward, a complete forward on attack duty. The reason why I went for the complete forward is because the complete forward is more of a target man and an advanced forward combined into one. So because Thuram is quite a tall player and he also has a lot of pace, I didn't just want him to be a target forward. So I also didn't want him to be a deep line forward because I didn't really want him to drop deep that far. So complete forward was like the best role that I could go ahead and select for Thuram. Now most of the Catenaccio changes came from the team instruction. I kind of dialed everything down to what I feel is the most basic principles of the Catenaccio system. You can see that we have standard tempo instead of the lower tempo now, and then the more direct passing is also still selected. Fairly narrow I think should also be there, but everything else I went on to just leave it blank. The creative freedom here is going to be discipline, so the team can stay in a robust shape and be difficult to break down, so still from the Catenaccio system. And then when the team is in transition here, all I did was take off the goalkeeper's instruction that said slow the pace down. There's no need for him to do that. We're going to regroup and we're also going to hit the opposition on the counter attack when we go ahead and win possession. But there's no real need for the goalkeeper to slow the pace down if we need to counter a team immediately. So I didn't really see the point of it. Out of possession, I went on to push trigger press from less often to a standard trigger press. That way you can just follow the pressing intensity of the cautious mentality. So if we're playing cautious, we're not going to press your position that hard. So standard press is kind of okay for me. If we go ahead to less often trigger press, we're just going to be leaving the opposition with too much time on the ball, and it's not really useful for us. We are already playing on a low block and low defensive line. There is no need to go for a less often trigger press in that sense. So I just feel that that's actually what worked out for us. It kind of helped us get better results, and there's a lot of tweaking that you can actually do. So when you're going off in one of games against the elite clubs and you're not sure how you're going to actually perform in those games, it's okay to actually tweak it a little bit and then prepare to be defensively solid and also to hit the opposition on the counter attack. And you have to take into account some of your team instructions that will actually hinder you from being a counter-attacking team. So if you're used to the meta duties that tell you to play shorter passing with higher tempo, and then you go ahead and play cautious mentality, it may work once in a while, but then you notice that you're going to find it very difficult to actually counter the opposition because you're playing with shorter passing. Your team is going to be trying to ping the ball around really short, not going to help you get the ball forward. So you just have to move things around a bit, like set it to normal. Except if you're not sure of anything, set it to just standard in the middle and then go for a more direct passing to actually help you counter the opposition. Like against Tottenham, when I was playing in the Super Cup with Arsenal, what I did was actually play with a standard passing directness and standard mentality, and standard passing directness and standard tempo. Then the mentality was all the way down in cautious. I didn't also use the regroup instruction for the Arsenal against Spurs game. I went up to uncheck that option. The only option I had was the counter instruction, and then I think I had the goalkeeper to distribute it quickly, because in that sense my Arsenal team could actually get the ball far forward. We're not that bad off from Tottenham, and I wasn't really trying to be overly defensive, so distributing it quickly helped us. But in case you don't need to do that, you don't want to lose possession of the ball, there's no need to turn it on. For the Arsenal game, for the Tottenham game, for out of possession, I didn't really use a low block. I kind of went with a mid block and a standard defensive line. Because we were cautious, we were still able to sit deep in a kind of mid to low block and then try to hit the opposition on the counter attack that way. But Catenaccio could be low block, and then you can go ahead and use that just in the one-off game to try and see off those big teams. And then if you notice that the opposition is coming too hard onto you and it's getting to the latter stage of the game, you can go ahead and shift it a little bit and play a bit more attacking to actually help you get a goal. Let me know what you think of the Catenaccio system. Have you gone on to use it before on Football Manager? What did you learn from it? Do let me know in the comment section, and I'll see you in the next video.